Hi, this is Roseanne, and this is my husband Anthony. And I thought this was an interesting topic. We were actually talking about it earlier today, and I thought let's stop for a second and share it with you guys. And we're talking about the auto industry, actually. So, could you kind of fill them in on where we left off?
So President Trump is likely to take some measures that are almost certainly going to cause long-term harm to the automotive industry. When I say long-term, it's not the type of harm that's going to happen in the next year, 2 years, 3 years, but over the course of 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, this is likely to have a really, really detrimental effect on America. What he's doing is it seems likely that he's going to eliminate the $7,500 electric credit for electric vehicles. And it also looks like he has either canceled or long-term put aside the infrastructure upgrade network that was put in place by the prior administration. And that was to go into effect fairly soon, and it was going to install large numbers of charging stations around the country. There's also some talk about actually charging a tax for buying an electric vehicle.
So, that tax above and beyond the normal sales tax.
Right. It would simply be a federal tax that you would have to pay. The number being kicked around is $1,000, but who knows where that'll end up. There may even never be a tax, but at least they're talking about it now. The problem with all of these measures is it has the effect of disincentivizing American manufacturers from investing in electric technology, electric vehicle technology.
Okay.
Once you get rid of the tax credit and you don't have a really good charging infrastructure, and you even potentially have what amounts to a punitive tax on top of it, you take away the incentive because the financial incentives will be removed.
So you take away the incentive of the auto company, Ford or Audi or whoever. You take away the incentive of them creating more EVs because less people can buy them because these
Yeah.
tax breaks are now
And
gone.
you mentioned Audi. It's really American manufacturers that are considerable here.
Okay.
So why does this matter? People will tell you that the adoption rate of electric vehicles in the United States has been less than what was predicted. And there's no question that is true. It appears as though at this point we have an adoption rate lower than 10%, may even be below 9%. But you'd have to get current figures to know exactly.
Okay.
But the point here is that the adoption rate is definitely less than what had been anticipated. So you would think, well, what's the harm? The problem is the adoption rate around the world is skyrocketing. So using China as an example, because China is the largest automotive market in the world. They are adopting electric vehicles presently at about the 50% mark.
Okay.
So about half the cars bought are electric vehicles. That's only going to go up.
So so in China right now, 50% of the cars that are purchased,
Roughly speaking, yeah.
or leased, are EV cars.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
And you're seeing that type of adoption all over the world. You're not seeing it in the United States.
Okay.
The problem is by taking away the incentive for U.S. manufacturers to develop their electric technology and the manufacturing processes that go along, we in the future will not be able to sell our cars around the world. So the American market is somewhere around 15 million cars. The Chinese market, which is the largest single market, is almost double that, or about double that. It could even be a little bit more than double. It just depends on the number. But without being exact, it's about double.
Okay.
Worldwide market, again, rough numbers, somewhere around 65 million.
So 65 million EVs are sold
Vehicles.
around the world.
Vehicles
in general.
Vehicles in general.
Okay, got it.
So as the adoption rate continues to go up for EVs around the world, the number of potential customers you have for internal combustion engine cars, trucks, the like, goes down. So what will happen is American manufacturers will not have invested in that, the electric technology needed to compete with other manufacturers. We're already behind. We're already, the best batteries in the world are made in China. The Chinese technology is, without a doubt, they have the best battery technology. If American manufacturers want the best battery technology right now, they have to buy it. They have to lease that technology or buy that technology
From China.
From China, if they'll sell it. They might even be not willing to sell the best technology, but probably they will. So when you look down the road, as the adoption rate increases around the world, our manufacturers are going to be at a competitive disadvantage for two reasons. One is they're just not going to have the electric vehicles that they need in order to sell to the rest of the world. And the electric vehicles that they do make, if they continue to make them, are going to be technologically inferior because the incentive to invest the monies that you need to invest in order to make them competitive are not going to be there. And just selling in the United States greatly reduces the potential for what your manufacturers could otherwise do. And as a result, the type of employment that they could potentially bring along with that.
So let's project 5 years, 10 years, like you said, into the future. Let's go 10 years into the future. Not only will we not have the technology needed to compete with EVs made by other countries, we also are only producing or might only be producing gas-burning engines.
True.
And if the world is moving in the direction of EVs,
Without a doubt they are.
then we're not only not selling EVs to the world, but we're not even selling gas-burning gas-burning vehicles.
Exactly right. You're not selling. You won't be selling almost anything. You know, it's not quite zero because the cutoff point where the world stops buying internal combustion engine cars and trucks is probably quite a ways off, but it's a diminishing market, and it's rapidly diminishing. And it's rapidly diminishing all over the world. You already see in China a market of about 31, 32 million, depending on whose numbers you believe. Or if the United States does not produce any competitive electric vehicles, and we don't at this time, 15 million potential customers are just off the table. That's just gone.
Wow.
They're gone. And there's a secondary effect to all this, which is if the efficiencies of running an internal combustion engine car are lower than the efficiencies of running an electric vehicle, and let's extrapolate this out to trucks that do deliveries.
Okay.
What happens is if all you're doing is running internal combustion engines in the United States, all along the supply chain where transportation becomes an issue, transportation by truck, let's say, is used, that will be less efficient, hence cost more. That's what we really mean when we say less efficient.
Sure.
Will cost more than a competitor overseas that's running an electric vehicle.
An electric truck that transports widgets.
So if you use a concrete example, let's just say in the United States, to run a truck is 40 cents a mile. I have no idea what it is, but let's just say it's 40 cents a mile.
Make up a number. Okay.
And you have a high level of efficiency for a similar truck, similar capacity somewhere else, and they are running it instead of for 40 cents. Let's just say they're running at 20 cents. You now have a 20-cent difference per mile along the supply chain for everything that goes into building whatever it is that truck is delivering. That may not seem like much.
Well, it's 50%.
Well, those are just made up numbers.
Right,
but
right.
In a world where margins are getting tighter and tighter and tighter, and competition is becoming more and more intense from more and more countries, those couple of percent can make the difference between we are building products that we can sell around the world to we are building products that we can't sell around the world. And you already see other countries suffering from this.
Such as?
Well, in Germany. The Germans just cannot build a car efficiently. It's just so expensive to do business in Germany that they have to sell expensive cars. Yeah. Almost all of their cars.
So you're also, besides looking at, this is stating the obvious, but besides looking at less of the things that we produce, less automobiles that we produce being sold to the world, you're also looking at less jobs.
Exactly what it translates into. In the end, that's really what matters to us, right?
Yeah.
Less jobs and less money.
Yeah.
I mean, what we want to do is we want to have factories. I mean, automotive factories tend to be highly automated, but still they require large numbers of people.
Yeah. And if we're looking supposedly to bring manufacturing jobs back to the United States,
Right.
but we are not manufacturing what the world wants, how does that jive?
It doesn't jive.
It doesn't jive.
No, it doesn't. The customers just don't buy your product. If customers want electric vehicles and you're building gas-powered cars, you just don't make the sale. The sale goes to somebody else.
Right.
If you were making electric vehicles and they were competitive, then we could quibble about, okay, theirs is priced at this, ours is priced at that, but we have this feature, we have. When you're talking about a difference between one is electric, one is internal, and they don't want internal combustion engine cars, there's just nothing to talk about now. The sale just doesn't happen. So these policies, if they go into effect, are likely to have a pretty devastating effect long term. You won't feel them right away. And as a matter of fact, you might even see some uptick early on. It's possible, but
How so?
well, if you have American manufacturers just catering towards what Americans want right now, and there's no incentives put in place for Americans to want to buy electric vehicles, then you're not going to see problems. And like I said, you might see internal combustion cars and Americans making them, and so you might be okay in the short term. But long term, this is without doubt.
So we don't have a product to export, is what you're saying.
You don't have a product to export. So if you look at, let's just say the worldwide market is, again, 65 million. The number could be a little higher, it could be a little bit lower. Let's just use 65 million as
per year
worldwide.
Autos
right.
being sold.
And let's just say that the rest of the world really wants electric vehicles. Let's say we're 10 years, 15 years into the future, and we're still building almost all internal combustion engine cars. Okay, 50 million vehicles, units sold in the United States. We have access to that market and probably would be very successful in that market if we can competitors. 50 million are now off the table, right? The rest of the world is just off the table. They don't want what you have.
Right.
Now, again, this is an exaggeration. It's not quite going to be 50 million. You know, there'll always be a need for.
Of course.
But you see where this is. The writing is on the wall. It doesn't take much to figure out. If you're
this is not the best idea in the world.
Probably not the best approach to wanting to see to it that long term you have a powerful, competitive automotive industry.
Because as a nation, we need to not only produce things here and sell to our own people, we need to produce things here that we are going to sell to the world, right? I mean, isn't that how trade works?
Well, that's one of the complaints that you hear from Trump, right? We have a trade deficit with all these nations where we're buying so much more from them, than they are from us.
Okay.
Well, if you're not making cars to sell to the rest of the world, you're likely to
add to the trade deficit.
Add to the problem. So again, this short term, you're short term, you can get away with this. Long term, this is a disaster. And when it finally does happen, there'll be almost no way to get that capital back.
Yeah.
We will have fallen so far behind in the technology needed to build electric cars efficiently that the rest of the world, competitively, back again to that, competitively, efficiently, using the best technology at the time, it almost be impossible to get. Where these kind of policies are likely to lead us.
And last question, which probably would go on too long if you did have a viable answer, but any idea why anyone would come up with a policy like this?
You know, it's hard to know. It's difficult to know what's going on inside their head. I mean, these are not stupid people. They must understand what the long-term implications of these policies are. So why are they doing it? Can't answer that question because I haven't gotten.
Do you see any positive for not having an infrastructure for EVs and charging, a fee or a tax to our citizens to buy them and getting rid of incentives to buy them? So you're looking at another $8,500 on the
if
they do everything they want to do.
Yeah.
So another $8,500 on top of the price of the vehicle and limited access to charging it.
Charging infrastructure. Exactly.
Okay.
Do I see any benefit to that? Not really. It's really difficult to come up with how that, imparts any value to the American people. Perhaps short term, somebody could explain that some value, but long term, I was reading a very interesting article. This is something a little bit off the beaten path, but exactly what we're talking about. But the article was talking about what is the future, what is the best range for cars in the future? Because there's this range anxiety, right, with electric vehicles. Everybody wants an
The
electric
highest
vehicle,
range.
right, highest range,
Yeah.
and there's good reason for that. You think to yourself, I get better range, and it looks like the future batteries, which are coming out relatively soon, next couple of years, are going to be offering pretty good ranges of 500 miles. It's not going to be that big a deal relatively soon. However, this particular article was arguing that the future of electric vehicles is 180 miles. Now, I think he just kind of popped that number out because it sounded interesting. But what he's trying to say, the author of this particular article is saying, is that it's not the long range vehicles that really is where the future is. The future is in the lower range vehicles with a very robust charging network.
Yeah.
Because what he was saying is something that made a lot of sense. We can build, especially in the future, not too distant future, cars that are going under 200-mile range very inexpensively. Those battery packs are going to be cheap.
Wow.
Those are going to be inexpensive cars to manufacture.
Wow.
Who drives 180 miles in a day? Almost no one. But you are a little bit nervous that if you want to go on a trip, you just like having that security of, I've got 500 miles.
Yeah.
But when you have a really good electric infrastructure and you have really fast charging times, whatever, 600, 800, 900 volt recharge, anxiety range is not going to be a problem. So you'll be able to build the cheaper cars.
Which we struggle with, I think, these days. A lot of the manufacturers, it seems, don't have low-end cars for, an entry, a person, a young person, someone who moved from maybe a place that had a lot of public transportation to a place that doesn't. Now they've got to get their first car. There doesn't seem to be a lot of nice, easy entry level cars in the industry anymore.
Average transaction price for a car is over $48,000.
Wow.
48 average.
Wow.
That's crazy.
So by allowing the technology to improve and by having the infrastructure, then you can have cars that don't have a lot of bells and whistles, don't have to have the anxiety about distance. The batteries don't have to be big, bad, and expensive because just like right now, within 60 seconds of where we live, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gas stations. Literally, I would say, once you're in the car within 60 seconds of where we live, within 1 minute, we can get to 5 gas stations. So imagine if there was an infrastructure even half that good. Yeah, I wouldn't have anxiety.
And if you could charge up your car to, say, 100-mile range in 5 or 8 minutes.
Yeah, beautiful.
You wouldn't worry. Range anxiety would go away. If you knew that all along the route of the trip you were going to take, there was plenty of charging stations. So in any event, the interesting thing is that it also has the added benefit of having cheaper cars in the future, when you have a robust charging network throughout the entire country. But that's been canceled. Is it canceled permanently?
Yeah.
But currently,
for now,
it seems to be on ice.
And then again, if we have these, new rules, so to speak, integrated soon into, our system, then it's 4 years to catch up
we can't
to technology.
We can't afford to lose 4 years. We're already behind a couple of years from China in the best batteries.
Yeah.
Already.
Well, and the best, and the infrastructure.
The infrastructure.
So now, if we stop the growth of infrastructure, we've stopped it for 4 years. So we are 4 years behind, and that's hard to catch up with. Imagine being 4 years behind in your bills. Like, how the heck do you catch up to that?
It'd be very, very difficult.
You start building a house, and then you stop, and
that's
workers.
Why I said earlier, when it becomes obvious these were terrible policies.
Yeah.
It's going to be very, very hard to get that capital. That's just, getting toothpaste back into the bottle. It's not going to be easy, if doable at all.
Yeah.
These aren't good policies. These are just not really well thought through policies that are likely to serve us in the future. They may serve us in the short term. They may give us that quick sugar high, but long term, these are not.
Well, I really appreciate you taking some time. I mean, you explained it to me, and then I oftentimes can't regurgitate it back in such great detail. So I really wanted you to share this, and I have a feeling we're going to be sharing some more stuff down the
There's
down
a lot
the
of
road,
interesting
but
things going on here. You know, you
Yeah.
can't get Chinese vehicles.
yeah,
You know,
Can't
now,
get 'em.
it's a whole subject of itself. But
yeah,
you know, American manufacturers and American politicians know that if they allow Chinese vehicles to come in the United States the way they are today, it's going to be a really big problem for
Yeah.
manufacturers. But that's for another time.
Hey, listen, you guys who are watching, if there's a topic that you want Anthony to cover, I was going to say us to cover, but I'll just, be the question asker. But if there's a topic you want us to cover, something like reserve currency, a lot of people don't even know what that means. What is reserve currency and why is it so important? Things like, other countries buying bonds, the US bonds, to help us with our debt, which is significant. So if there's some topics you guys want to hear, kind of a even keeled, mellow, digestible approach, just pop us a question, and we'll be happy. I'll be happy to bring it to Anthony and have him chat it up for you guys. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank
It was
you.
fun.
It was real fun. Thanks, guys.